5 years. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Now, this guy should need no introduction. Reverend, come on down. This is Robert Coleman. He should need no introduction. He is the economic driver for the city of Midwest City, bar none. I call him the Reverend because he has the gospel of economic development, and you're a disciple. So anyway, thank you for your long service for the city of Midwest City, and we've got a big party cake for you.
Mr. Coleman, when are we going to get a Whole Foods?
Tracy? Everybody's standing up for you, buddy.
Good work. Good working. Good working.
Tracy's been with us 25 years. He does anything that we ask him to do, and we'll be in meetings upstairs. He's a hugger, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
He'll come in, hey, Mr. Mayor.
Hey,
Tracy,
Mayor.
not now, not now.
Not now.
He's a staple in this community. We love having you, Tracy. And just keep.
Are you gonna have to keep this place in good shape? If you don't get the place good, clean, good, you're gonna get that man over there mad. Steve get mad if you don't keep it clean.
Steve?
If you don't keep this place clean, Steve gonna get mad.
I got it, Tracy. I'll make sure it gets cleaned. I don't want Steve mad.
If you don't want to get this place clean, you're gonna have to meet him in his office.
Well, I'm used to going to people's offices and getting chewed out. Trust me. Here we go. We got a party pick, buddy. Good job, Tracy. Espy. I've known Espy the better part of 30 years. Worked with her when I was at the police department. She was the head of the Omni Neighborhood Association and was our mayor. Or you should be mayor. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
It's coming.
Served on our council and just continues to serve this community in a lot of different ways and has done 25 years of service to this community. So, Espy, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. She's retired now and having a lot of fun with your grandkids, right? Is Audrey Griffin here? No Audrey. Okay. That's all I got. Okay, we go into community-related announcements. Mr. Lyon.
Unless Donna has some for me. Okay.
Nothing's going on in the city of Midwest City.
I would like to say we had a great daddy-daughter dance this past weekend, 3 sessions, And thanks to all the volunteers and the staff that put that on. It was a great event, so.
Is that a motion to adjourn? Don's having a heart. Okay, we'll now move into our consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that the council members by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any council member requests to discuss an item, or if there's not unanimous consent, then the item will be removed and heard in regular order. Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. I withdraw that question. Sorry. I withdraw the question. I got it. Thank you. Move to
I make a
approve.
motion to, I second your motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Nays? Same sign. Item passes. I'm a little out of sorts right now. Now we move into our discussion items on our agenda. Discussion item number 1, Mr. Lyon.
PC 2196, public hearing, discussion, consideration, possible action of an ordinance to redistrict from single-family detached residential district R6 to a simplified plan unit development for the property described as, without going through the legal, is located at 920 North Air Depot, Midwest City. Matthew.
Thank you. This is a rezoning application. The applicant is seeking the simplified PUD, planned unit development as designation, and they would like an underlying zoning of C2. So anything that they don't sort of change in the design statement, we would apply the C2 zoning standards to, just so we're all clear on how that works. There were some changes to their design statement after the item was heard by the Planning Commission. There was some discussion about the uses that might be appropriate for that district. And so the applicant did sort of go back and amend those, and those are reflected here in the staff report. So they're on the first page, the 4 items that are listed as the uses that would be approved sort of on this site if the rezoning is approved. Those are the uses that were discussed at the Planning Commission. The applicant also, as part of their PUD, their SPUD application, requested a reduction in some of our typical parking requirements. And the use that they're proposing, the company involved is typically pretty good about, requesting parking reductions, but providing the justification that's necessary. They can show that, their stores of certain square feet, typically have a certain number of customers at the same time. So we're supportive as staff, and the Planning Commission recommended approval of, that reduction in parking. I think it makes a lot of sense.
We have multiple instances in the Midwest City of them doing that successfully.
Yeah. In addition, as part of their SPUD, they are looking to increase the buffering distance, or the distance that the building and their parking and things like that would be from the adjoining residential properties, as sort of a trade-off, if you will, for some of those variances, not necessarily variances, but some of those, the flexibility in the design regulations that they're requesting. Excuse me. We do want to note that platting is required as part of the development of this site. And I note sort of anecdotally that we found out after the staff report was written and then submitted in as the part of the packet that this property was subdivided by deed, which is prohibited by our local subdivision regulations. We found out after. I didn't have time to sort of include that in the staff report. It shouldn't really have any bearing on whether or not the zoning that they're requesting is appropriate, but we do note that subdivision of property of less than 10 into lots of less than 10 acres does require a plat in Midwest City per our local ordinances. We did comply with all state and local notification requirements. We did get several phone calls of opposition to the application. Most of the calls were posed to a commercial business abutting residential property. And in addition, there were property owners that attended the public hearing before the Planning Commission, and they were opposed to the application based on the type of development, the increased traffic, the possibility of decreased property values, and concerns about drainage. Ultimately, the Planning Commission recommended approval of this item with a 6-1 vote, and action is at the discretion of the City Council.
Matt,
This
I'd
is-
like to point out that the developer and his attorney met with the Ridgecrest Neighborhood Association and were very forthcoming. They made concessions to that group as well. They left that meeting, we all did, I think, with the feeling that they would be as good a neighbor as we could ask for. And so as a neighborhood association, they were welcomed and approved, to the extent that they have the, ability to do that. And in addition, not only did they make other concessions, but they even laid on the table the possibility at some point in the future of donating the back portion of their building lot, which will be unused, back to the city should we ever have a need for a small park or recreation area or a buffer, an additional, wildlife zone or something. I thought that was very generous and very thoughtful. So anyway, with that, I'd make a motion to approve.
Hold on just a minute, Mr. Thompson.
Actually-
This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience have anything to bring forward to the council concerning this particular item?
Sorry, can I actually add one thing that I forgot to mention earlier?
Yes, sir.
It was brought to my attention. There is a typo on page 6, on the third paragraph from the top. It mentions visibility from Southeast 15th Street, and that should be North Air Depot.
Duly noted.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that
It would be
would
very
be.
difficult to see from 15th.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Is there any more discussion? Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. You bet. Item number 2, Mr. Lyon.
PC 2203, public hearing, discussion, consideration, possible action approving an ordinance to redistrict from PUD plan unit development to amended plan unit development for the property located at Lot 1 of the Tonic Plaza in addition to the city of Midwest City, according to the recorded plat located at 10011 Southeast 15th Street. Mr. Summers.
Thank you. In this instance, the applicant is requesting to amend an existing PUD. There's an existing PUD on the subject property that does not allow for certain types of indoor recreational use. In this case, participant recreation and entertainment indoor. The applicant is seeking to use redevelop a vacant grocery store into a trampoline park. And the current PUD does not allow that use. The amendments would also make some adjustments to the way that the existing PUD today handles signage. There's signage that exists on that building today and has existed for a long time that technically violates the PUD, so this would kind of correct that and make it possible for them to have south-facing wall signs, which they previously could not have. Site-proof screening, is and would continue to be required where the commercial property abuts residential property. We complied with all state and local notification requirements. We did receive some phone calls on this application, but nobody that called in was opposed. And then there were actually some who called in favor of the application. The applicant was present at the Planning Commission meeting, but there was no public comment from citizens or surrounding property owners. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item.
The one thing I want to add, the fencing around that particular parcel has been an issue for a long time, and I hope that was reiterated to them when they applied that it needed to be maintained.
Yes, we have made them aware of that.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to bring before the council on this item?
And the applicant is here.
Okay. Do you have, sir, do you have anything to bring before the council?
I don't, but I do
Please state your name and address for us.
My name is Greg Schmetz. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Sky Zone Franchise Company out of the East Coast. I live in New Jersey at 14 Parkland Drive. So I just wanted to create just a brief statement to explain our business operations. We're more than just a business. We're a partner in the community wherever we operate. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm here to show our ongoing commitment to strengthening communities we serve. As a business, we believe our responsibility extends far beyond providing services. We're dedicated to making lasting positive impact, especially for our youth. One of our core values is teaching kids the importance of hard work. Through the experiences we offer, we help young people develop responsibility, teamwork, and leadership skills that benefit throughout their lives. We also work closely with local organizations, churches, schools. We provide a safe and welcoming outlet for kids to enjoy recreation, stay active, build social connections. These partnerships ensure that our families have access to fun, engaging, and enriching experiences in our own neighborhoods. Beyond our local efforts, we're proud to support national organizations like St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital and Best Buddies, reinforcing our dedication to the cause to uplift children and individuals with disabilities. Through these partnerships, we contribute to life-changing programs that bring hope, inclusion, and support those who need it the most. Our commitment to the community is not just a mission, it's a promise. We will continue to invest in initiatives that empower kids, that support families, and foster a stronger and more connected community for all. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to making Midwest City a better place.
Thank you for choosing Midwest City as your new home. And you're from New Jersey?
Yes.
Were you responsible for that weather we had last week?
Oh, man, I'll tell you, it's nice coming here today. It's 70 degrees.
Well, thank you for being
You've
here.
mentioned kids several times, so I guess you don't want us on them trampolines.
You're welcome. We have a waiver that you would have to fill out, but yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Are you sure you wouldn't want to put a grocery store inside of it? Maybe a first in the nation, trampoline park and food? Mayor,
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
motion to approve.
I second.
I've had a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you for being here. Item number 3, Mr. Lyon.
PC 2199, public hearing, discussion, consideration, and possible action of an ordinance amending Midwest City Code, Appendix A, zoning regulations, Section 7, development review procedures, subsection 7.11, mandatory pre-application conference for plans and applications, subsection 7.1.6, fees, subsection 7.5.1, site plan requirements, subsection 7.5.6, fees, subsection 7.8, special exceptions and providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Summers again.
Thank you. This text amendment has been a long time in coming. There was a lot of, I want to preface this by saying that there was quite a bit of research that went into preparing for this. You know, it's not something that we would sort of take on lightly. We understand that there is sort of a delicate balance between, you know, the fees that a city charges for services and what impacts that has on the community. With that said, you know, this text amendment would create a fee schedule within the zoning ordinance in Appendix A. That's something that doesn't exist there today. The fees exist outside of, or the fee table, I should say, is not contained in the ordinance itself. So this would provide additional transparency and ease for the citizens of Midwest City and developers to find this information. In addition to that, we are proposing to increase the fees. As of today, the fees that we charge are the same as those that we charged in 1990. It may go back further than that. That's sort of where I stopped looking to see when those fees were established. And we did conduct a very conservative analysis of, you know, what the typical cost for various applications that we have within the zoning ordinance and what it costs us to review. I will say we looked at estimates of, you know, planning staff, engineering staff, GIS staff, publication costs, things like that. I'll note things that we did not include, the work that, Public Works does reviewing applications. It does not include the work that the Fire Marshal's office does reviewing applications, or software, hardware costs, things like that are not really factored into this. That's why I say it's a conservative estimate, because we wanted to get a general idea of what it costs for us to review these applications, while still trying to keep our rates, competitive within the metro.
Matt, I had one question on that
Yes.
note. I'm in favor of it, but I noticed that the Planning Commission recommended higher rates than what you're actually recommending. Why can't we just go with the Planning Commission's thoughts on this and have the higher rates? What was your justification for bringing them down, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Part of the reason why I kept them, or where I recommended to the Ordinance Review Committee is, I wanted to keep them, at or below average for our peer communities as shown in the tables in the document. I was somewhat afraid of, having an even more substantial increase in the fees than what they already are. I mean, you can see from the tables that some of them are increasing by 4 times what they previously were. So I wanted to try to strike a balance, if you will, between, increasing the fees to where they're more closely covering the staff costs involved in reviewing the applications, while not, taking it to a point where we would, maybe be, one of the highest of our peer communities.
That's good, but we're the 8th largest city in the state, I believe. I've heard the mayor say that before.
What's that?
That we're the 8th largest city in the state.
We were the 7th until
Okay.
Lawton grew.
So I guess my point is, I wouldn't be too afraid of raising the rates to be more comparable with what Oklahoma City or Tulsa charge, because we're not that far off in terms of our costs out of pocket for these services.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's why, we have before you today, we have sort of both, our 2 different versions of the ordinance. We
Okay.
have the version that was originally drafted and was taken to the Ordinance Review Committee, and then we also have the version that reflects the fees that the Planning Commission, made a recommendation on. I mean, and obviously as city council, you would be well within your rights to adopt either version or make your own changes if you saw fit.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Mr. Summers?
Mr. Summers, do you make a recommendation or maybe suggest that we review this on an annual basis or by, every 2 years, something along those lines?
Yeah, I would recommend that we do that. My plan is to review this every 3 to 5 years. We should not go another, 35 years before we update the fees.
But I think we're, just as a staff, we're good. We propose those fees. We appreciate the Planning Commission and looking at trying to collect all costs, but if we commit to doing that and the council's fine with looking at this again in 3 to 5 years of review, this is a pretty good sized jump for us, so. But it's at the council's discretion.
Yeah, I would almost recommend that we do at least every 2 years at a minimum, because things change. The economy changes, city changes, council changes.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with what's been proposed.
And then review it in 2 years.
Why just proposing? I kind of liked what Mark had to offer there on this. If we approved what the Planning Commission put before us, and if it creates problems, couldn't we revise it much quicker within a month's span and do what you're suggesting now?
I mean, it would take a little bit longer than that. So revisions, if nothing else, revisions to the to Appendix A to the zoning regulations take longer than a lot of our others, because it also has to go through the Planning Commission for a recommendation. If we were amending the subdivision regulations, that would be a much faster process, because there's only the one public hearing.
How about splitting the baby on this one? Let's do the one that he recommended, and in 12 months, we'll come back and look at it and see, okay, were we right or should we go up? And then we can make that second jump if we don't think we captured enough and we bring it back in a year. And depending on what you find, that way you have a year of more information. Is this gonna work, or do we need to increase it?
Okay.
And I think that would take care of it.
We're fine with whatever is the pleasure of the council.
Oh, great wise Solomon, I agree with that. Splitting the baby.
I mean, the planning commission, if you look at the people that are on that, and you combine with our staff, that's a lot of expertise right there, so.
I agree.
You know, I think we let Matt do it, and we give him a year, and then if it doesn't work, then bring it back.
Given that almost all of these applications, if they're approved and acted upon, are of even greater benefit to the city, because there's some sort of a structure or a thing being built or acted upon that will improve our city, I guess it's, possible that we don't need to recoup every dime on every transaction.
So we're doing in between.
I make a motion that we accept the amount that went to the ordinance review committee that the planning people adopted, with the understanding that in 12 months, he'll bring it back to us with it. Do we need to go up, or are we okay to stay where we're at?
It's a public hearing.
This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to bring before council concerning this particular item? Seeing none, I close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Okay, that we pass what was brought to us originally, that went through the ordinance committee, that planning Matt brought to us, and that we agree that in 12 months, he'll come back to us and tell us, was this a significant enough raise, or do we need to raise it again?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I see that the city attorney grimacing. Is that okay?
No, I looked at our planning director and said, you got to remember this because I'll forget it.
Yeah, you better.
That it has to come
It's
back
on
in
Matt to
12
bring
months.
it back.
All in favor indicate by saying
Can I-
aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
My concern is, when we say that we're gonna come back and look at it in a year, are we putting it in writing that we're gonna do it? or
That's
we
what the
just making
motion
a
is.
suggestion?
That's why I was.
Yeah, it'll be in the minutes.
That will be,
Gotta be in the minutes.
yeah, I was going to say, Councilwoman Maxwell, that'll be reflected in the minutes. And it's up for him and I now to remember this too.
Yeah, I will set a calendar reminder for myself for December of 2025.
All right.
Okay, once again, I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 4, Mr. Lyon.
Public hearing, PC 2197, public hearing, discussion, consideration, and possible action of an ordinance amending the Midwest City Code, Appendix A, zoning regulations, Section 5, supplemental regulations, subsection 5.2.3, fencing and screening, subsection 5.7.8, steel shipping containers, personal storage units, subsection 5.9, application for establishment of private or quasi-private facility, subsection 5.17.1, carport requirements, and repealing and placing subsection 5.18, residential cluster development option into reserve, and providing for repealer and severability. Mr. Summers.
Thank you. This is related to the previous ordinance that we just discussed. So when we created the fee table, we need to make sure that all of the places where we previously had fees scattered throughout the regulations point to the fee table now. So that's one of the things that this ordinance does. The other is that it removes some duplicated language regarding notification. So we instead point to where else in the ordinance notifications are referenced, so that if there are changes in the future, we only have to change one place and we don't end up with conflicting language. It also specifies that the Board of Adjustment can hear special exceptions for carports wider than 24 feet. I can discuss that in greater detail if you would like, but it is better for the board to hear those applications than leave them to the discretion of the Community Development Director. It also proposes to repeal and place into reserve Section 5.18, which dealt with residential clusters. That was that's a style of residential, single-family development that's not been used in our code since it was adopted in 2010. And staff was directed by the Ordinance Review Committee to bring the ordinance, sort of repealing that and striking that as a development option. This item was recommended for approval by the Ordinance Review Committee and the Planning Commission, and action is at the discretion of council.
Any questions?
My one question is, if there were an individual or property that was impacted by this ruling in some way, they'd already done it, are they grandfathered in?
By the carport or by the cluster?
Carport or the metal containers, any of the provisions of these
So,
regulations?
yeah, so the ones under the carport, those would be, if they were permitted appropriately in the past, they would still be permitted appropriately today, even with the change in terms of who has the approval authority.
Okay.
And then the same thing, all the other ones are basically remaining the same. It's just adjusting where it talks about their fees.
All right, thank you.
This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to bring before council concerning this item? Seeing none, I close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 5, Mr. Lyon.
PC 2198, public hearing, discussion, consideration, possible action of an ordinance amending Midwest City Code Appendix A zoning regulations, Section 6, development review bodies, subsection 6.1.2, final authority for deciding applications and appeals, subsection 6.2.9, role and review of recommendation to the City Council, subsection 6.4.1, responsibilities, subsection 6.52, purpose and responsibilities, subsection 6.61, summary of review authority and providing for repealer and severability. So Matt Summers show tonight.
Thank you. This one makes some very minor changes since with your approval of the previous amendment. This one removes the references to residential clusters from Section 6 of the zoning regulations. And that is all that this one does. It was recommended for approval by the OOCC and the Planning Commission.
Any questions? This is a public hearing. Does anyone have anything to bring before council concerning this item? Seeing none, public hearing is closed and entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item number 6, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action approving a resolution of necessity to acquire through condemnation proceedings 2813, 2816 Park Lawn Drive in Midwest City. This had previously come to the council and had been approved. However, we had made one fairly major change in the plan design that extends Nightingale. I get the street right, or at Burlingame? Burlingame. That extends Burlingame onto Park Lawn, and we were going to use that as a trail, but really we need to use it as a street. We've talked to the neighborhood association, and it will create better access for Ridgecrest. It will also create a pathway to a stoplight for many residents. So it has multiple reasons why we added this to the necessity.
Will you remind me when this came before council last?
Oh, gosh. Dawn, it's been some time ago.
It's been within the last 6 months. But to pinpoint which meeting, it's been several months ago. But it was, I want to say either October or November of last year, if I remember right. And I'm doing that strictly by memory. If you want to.
Brian Bundy was the engineer involved
Yeah.
at that time, and he and I met on the properties and looked at it after that meeting. So I can't give you the exact date, but the weather was fairly good, so it was late fall.
Right, so I would say it was October or November of last year.
And
Yeah.
was the eminent domain piece included
Yes.
in that
Yes.
previously? Okay.
Yes, And what it is under under state law for us to undertake the eminent domain portion of it and begin the process. And what this did is it just began the process for us and right now what we are is we're in negotiations with the property owners to see if we could acquire the property without eminent domain. And we are progressing on those, but to start the process, under the statute, we needed to do a resolution of necessity, which is why this was done.
So,
We're not gonna go out tomorrow and start the paperwork.
No, we are, the Right Reverend is in the middle of negotiations on that right now. So he is diligently working with both property owners to see if we can secure the property without any form of litigation whatsoever.
and if there was if there needed to be a decision to utilize eminent domain, would that come before council for another vote, or would this be basically the go-ahead you need to proceed to that extent if necessary?
I don't remember that. Do you?
I don't know,
Those discussions?
no. I don't know. We would have to.
I would have to
We'll have
look
to
that up for
find
you.
out
I'm
from-
not 100% for sure one way or the other.
Okay, and my initial understanding was that this was really for a trail, a walking trail, but you were saying that we actually need it for roadways and.
Exactly. That's the only reason we're amending this, because we were asked by legal counsel to do this. But there'll still be a trail. We're not changing the trail. It's just, we'd like to move the street through there to connect for Ridgecrest.
I only ask, and I think I've expressed, I am really against the utilization of eminent domain, life, liberty, and property, or values and ideals, unless absolutely necessity where public interest trumps it. And honestly, a trail, given the fact that we have so many trails, I couldn't normalize a trail for the use of eminent domain. But if it is for roadways that are necessary for public
Yes.
traffic, then that kind of
Yeah,
changes
the
things.
design, like Tim said, the design has changed, and we are now bringing Burlingame.
Burlingame.
There we go, Burlingame,
Yeah.
on down to Park Lawn, and what that does is, it gives Ridgecrest much greater access into the area, and gives those residents a chance to come down, get to a stoplight, and it's much safer from a public safety standpoint for them to come down to the stoplight and then get access onto Reno.
Yeah, there's no doubt, I think, that it improves traffic viability for the whole project. It's unfortunate, though, because these are both long-term businesses that have been a part of our city, and they're viable and have been viable for generations. And I hope we continue to negotiate in good faith, and I know we will. That's always better, to come to an agreement among friends and family than to have to resort. But at the same time, this is a $50 million plus, once-in-a-lifetime expansion of the hospital zone. And, things have to happen. And so I would reluctantly support this and hope that they get a good price and that they're happy with the deal, but it has to go through. That's my opinion, anyway.
Any further questions or discussion? Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 7, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving an On-Road 2 program memorandum of agreement between the City of Midwest City Municipal and Midwest City Municipal Authority and the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality in the amount of $1,585,048.80 to replace eligible diesel vehicle engines to reduce nitrogen oxides.
I want to make a comment first. I read in the letter, it says matching funds are not required, correct? So
That's correct.
We're not asking for any money from the city.
No.
I think this is the first time that Paul Streets has come to us with a tie-on that he's not asking for money.
think that comes later.
Chair
Unfortunately,
duly notes
Councilperson,
that.
there are a few more agenda items later.
But this is
so
the
yeah,
first
This is the
time.
first, yes, this is the first
This
time.
is the first time.
So Honorable Mayor, Council, City Manager, this is a great opportunity for us. It's not often that we get free money. I say free money, but money without having to match, as Pat pointed out. And actually, all of this is thanks to, once again, Carrie Evenson. She happened to hear through the grapevine that we're going to get there was a potential to get some Volkswagen diesel settlement money funneled through DEQ through their clean air program, their air quality program, and we happen to be the recipient. This is going to replace 7 vehicles for us, 7 pieces of equipment. And it's a great opportunity for us to upgrade parts of our fleet that often are difficult to get the money scrounged together to get replaced. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or have Carrie come up and answer questions.
I had one question. It was startling to me. I read through the details of the agreement. After we buy the new trucks, we've got to scrap the old ones and like drill a 4-inch hole
Correct.
in the engine block.
We actually had to have that
And
agreed
that
upon beforehand,
just
yeah.
hits me so wrong. You're destroying a perfectly good old diesel truck seems wrong to me. And I understand the logic. Maybe there's some environmental issues and that they're polluting too much. I don't know. It just seemed wrong to me.
Trust me when I tell you, have any of you met Craig Davis, our fleet manager? He literally had to shed tears for him to agree to this, because the idea of destroying a perfectly good block that's old is a little bit of a challenge. But the reality is, this is how they remove those, get them off the street, and put equipment on the street that actually produces less pollution.
But these
Okay.
vehicles are old vehicles. We're not replacing anything that's high
No.
quality, I promise you.
30 plus years, and as Ward 6 asked me earlier, this is a situation where we're not putting new engines in a piece of equipment, replacing the entire piece of equipment, so.
Well, it's kind of a no-brainer, free money, new trucks. I guess, yeah, not free money really, is it? It's kind of recycled free money. But anyway, I'd make a motion that we,
She got
she's
the
already,
motion, you can
I
second.
second your motion.
I make a motion that we accept.
I second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
I want to point out that there will be another agenda item in the Municipal Authority, very similar to this, you'll have to take action on. Meanwhile, please welcome my brother Jake from State Farm.
You stole that from me. It's not right.
Okay, item number 8, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration of possible action of accepting, approving the financial audit of the city of Midwest City for the year ending June 30, 2024. Mr. Cromar.
Council is, you guys are tasked with hiring an auditor, and so I'm just happy to present Cenk Winkler, good-looking guy, partner with Arledge Associates.
We'll say that I'm materially good-looking, I think, Tia. That's probably the more appropriate stance for an auditor. Thank you all for having me. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve the city of Midwest City again this year. This is our 3rd year on the engagement. I want to give a special shout out to Tia and Frank Chen, the Deputy Finance Director. We audit, yeah, for sure. We audit 22 cities in the state of Oklahoma. Of the 22 cities that we audit, approximately a third of those are the top 10 largest cities in the state of Oklahoma. Of the engagements that we work on, there is one audit that was filed on time that was in that top third. That is the city of Midwest City. So that is what happens whenever you get to audit good, clean books without much going on. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, which is I don't really have a whole lot to report. Actually, I have nothing to report. So this is going to be, once again, a very boring audit presentation, which is exactly what you want. We'll start on page 4, which is the independent auditor's report of the large binder, the big financial information there that you have. Here you'll see that in the second paragraph, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the city of Midwest City. That means that we believe that the financial figures that you have been working with for the year, we didn't have any audit adjustments, we don't have any significant deficiencies, we don't have any material weaknesses, we have no compliance findings, there's nothing. So what that means is you all have been working with good data throughout the year. As you guys have been doing your budgetary comparisons, you don't need to make any adjustments based upon what we've come in and looked at. So again, credit to Tia and Frank on all of that information. Towards the bottom of page 5 and at the start of page 6, sorry, I'm popping here. Those are our responsibilities as your auditor. So if you are curious as to what role we are having to play on the engagement, those bullet points would highlight that. There is a couple things that I could highlight financially. Again, nothing really changes, but no changes to the numbers that you guys have been looking at all year. But one of the things, just in terms of the financial management of the city, the general fund and the municipal authority both have good, healthy, unassigned balances. Those are discretionary balances for the council. So they're not restricted dollars or not committed dollars. So I always like to highlight the fact that whenever general fund can't be underwater, that would be statutorily illegal. But ultimately, you do have a good, healthy amount of net assets that are available there that are unassigned, approximately $2 million at the end of the year, which is roughly 20% of your total net assets.
I have one question.
Sure.
Where can a member of the public who may be hearing this actually find a copy on the internet, or maybe even a hard copy of this audit?
Sure, great question. So first off, I would tell you that I believe the city posts this on their website. If you have difficulty locating it there, you can also go to the state auditor and inspector's website. All municipal audits are uploaded to the state auditor and inspector, so you can actually go and run a search for the city of Midwest City and find not just this year's audit, but all audits that have been filed, I think, for maybe the past 10 years. So there's a history there. And that will also contain, and then you can also go to, as long as you all have a single audit, which you do, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you can also go to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse and obtain a copy of them there. So digitally, those are 3 options. As far as hard copies, I think you guys get quite a few of them from Crawford and Associates, who assists with the financial report presentation. So do they print those for you, Tia? I don't remember. Do I do that? You do it. Okay, so Tia says he'll print whatever anybody wants. And so there's a few options for you.
There's a little bit of a limit to that.
But it is publicly available and with not
100%.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I wanted to make it clear to anybody who was confused or concerned, this information's widely distributed and available.
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, honestly, I don't know why you wouldn't have this on the front page. The audit looks so good. So outside of that, there's no new accounting standards that we had to implement this year. So in terms of the actual audit report, I can kind of put a pin in that, and we can talk about the single audit if you want, or I can answer questions on the audit report at this point if you would like.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
How many cities do you audit in the state?
22.
Okay, of those 22, where does ours stand in relationship to, as far as no findings, no problems?
Yeah. So you know how that whole
cities.
Yeah. And I won't be naming anything specifically, but one of the things that I will tell you, one of the reasons that so many of them are behind, again, I filed one on time. A big reason a lot of them are behind is because they're not doing the things that this city has been doing so well. In terms of not just having a closed process. All of them have a good financial reporting closed process. But a major issue that a lot of them are having is there's been a lot of turnover. They've been losing people who have been in positions for 15, 20, 25 years. And so the closed process that they've established has actually been that knowledge is just gone. And now you have people who are in there and they just can't keep to the same standard as maybe some of their predecessors. And this is a very common problem that's going on everywhere right now. Except, well, and again, you've got not just Tia and Frank, but you've got 2 great people at the top of your finance department that, I mean, I would say any city would be lucky to have them as a finance director. So, yeah, I mean, it's.
Go ahead and say Midwest City's #1.
Well, I don't think I'm permitted to say that.
If you watch,
but
if you watch the news,
yeah,
we have a city out east of us,
Mhm.
and we have a city out west of us that are causing had a lot of issues.
Yes.
And I don't think you could stand up on their council and say what they're doing is what.
Let's just say typically whenever I have an audit that looks a little messy, I don't always get invited to the council meetings.
Vice
So-
Mayor, we also have a county that we reside in that can't turn over financial statements, and our Moody ranking is about to be depleted. But I do have a question.
Sure.
And this may be because I'm really bad at math.
Okay.
So when I do math, like, I have to go through like 6, 7
Okay.
attempts with corrections. And so I've noticed this repeatedly in the last couple of years when we do an audit, that there is no corrections needed to be submitted. How, I mean, are like machines running this? I mean, why is there no human error?
Well, okay, so I want to be clear, okay? It's not like I can come in here and say, you know, there's not one single dollar variance between anything that I'm looking at. You got to understand that I'm applying materiality to everything. Now, if there was something that was a small variance that I thought still merited the attention, it would end up in the financial report. I will tell you that generally, what we experience out here, most everything is, I mean, the number one thing that cities will mess up is cash. They just don't reconcile cash timely or properly. That is never, your cash is always reconciled to the penny. We just don't find anything on that. So some of the accruals and everything, I might find small variances that are not material to a city the size of this. I mean, it would be a waste of my time to start going through that. It would be a waste of your time. But at the same time, those are accruals. Those are all things that are just management trying to close books and say, this is the stuff that's not supported by cash yet. This is the cash that's coming or the cash that's going to be outgoing. But in terms of your cash balance, which I will tell you, if you get that right, it is really hard to have material findings. In the 3 years I've been here and in the years that I audited this with my previous firm, Winya, who has been doing the cash reconciliation process here for a very long time, always has it to the penny. So you just have, I mean, like I said, you have a finance department here that is just extremely diligent, and they just don't let things through.
What's the common term? It's been a couple of years since I went through
Sure.
accounting. Is it still Gatsby?
GASB.
that been-
GASB. It's Governmental Accounting Standards Board
Right.
is GASB. So there's, and so
So what's the term now?
it's still GASB.
It's still go.
It's still GASB. So GASB statements. So you've had, you know, there was the lease standard that GASB sets the financial standards for reporting, financial reporting. They do the reporting for, so like you've had the new standards that have come out for leases and software, Sabita, that came out a few years ago, GASB 68 that put that giant pension liability on everybody's books a few years back. I will tell you, like when you look at your government-wide financial statements, you see a big, scary, unassigned number that's negative. That you cannot do a dadgum thing about that. And it has everything to do with the giant pension liability that hits your books, that you all comply with exactly what you're supposed to pay in and do everything you're supposed to do. It's a liability at the state, and that just gets passed right back down to the cities. So there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like you can go, I'm gonna go and pay additional funding into the pension plans. That would be illegal. So it's just a liability that hits your books, and everybody, and bondholders know this, you know, anybody who's going to look at your financial statements knows that information.
Can I ask two
Sure.
more questions and answer them however you like? One, I hear the economy is stressful these days, and I don't even know if this is part of your scope of duties, but do you have any advice for the city of Midwest City and like on how we can play it safe over the next year or 2 or 3?
I'll answer that in the next agenda item.
Perfect.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought that was about. Okay.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's not really within my scope, but I mean, if it, you know, obviously if management wants to talk to me about what I think and what I'm seeing, I mean, I'm happy to have those discussions, but I would, you know, honestly, I would need more time to kind of sit back and think about it.
Okay. Question number 2, and this is something I think I've repeatedly brought up every year now. Best practices as far as how many times consecutively should the same entity be hired to perform an audit?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of schools of thought here, okay? My thing is I actually would tell people, if you are happy with your auditor, that you feel like they're bringing value, that they're not being unduly difficult, but they are also making sure they're following your standards. I think it's actually a better practice to stay with that firm who knows what they're doing. I mean, if you want to look at it this way, I just told you we audit 22 cities in the state. There's not another firm that would come anywhere close to that in terms of our knowledge base and the wide array of practice that we can see within our own state. So if there was okay, well, let's go out for proposal, let's get new sets of eyes on it. I have another audit partner. If you don't want me to look at it anymore, we can absolutely rotate audit partners. That's a very common practice. Every 5 years, every 10 years, you know what? Let's have a different partner look at it. But to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense that if you have an industry expert who's looking at this, that's not just an expert in the industry, but an expert specifically with the industry within your own state, that switching to a different firm is going to basically remove a lot of the experience and things that the institutional knowledge that we would have that not a lot of other firms would have.
Okay, follow up on that.
Sure.
What is the industry's best practice number for that?
Well, so again, I would say industry's best practice, I've seen people go out for proposal every 5 years. I don't really like that practice. And the reason I don't like that practice is, honestly, it's going to drive your fee up. Okay? I mean, if everybody knows that if I win the bid, I'm going to have to try and win it again in 5 years, your fees are going up. It's just the way it's going to work, because I know that in 5 years I can be replaced. And honestly, when it comes to most governmental institutions, you don't really start making a profit until year 3 or 4.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions?
Are there any concerns about the software we're using? Do you look at that? I mean, is it?
No. I mean, again, I would say you have a good control process at the moment that's preventing errors and preventing issues. Now, that being said, you have a whole lot of stuff coming down the pipe right now, technologically, that could maybe create some efficiencies and automate some processes. All of that's a possibility. I can talk with Tia about some of the things that we're seeing there. Again, I'd want to have way more time to actually look into that and discuss it. Because generally, my philosophy has been, look, if it's not really broken, don't fix it. Everything's working. It's, you're not getting issues, you're not getting findings. So I want to make sure that, in terms of my job is to make sure that I'm opining on what you're given. If I saw issues, then I would say, hey, you may want to look at this system. It's a little antiquated. Let's maybe see if we can't modernize it and try and improve the outputs that you're getting from that, just to make things a little bit more efficient and a little less prone to error. I'm just not seeing that right now. Yeah, Great Plains is a great software system. 100%. Yeah. Top notch. And yeah, you're currently using Great Plains, and I will tell you, I've seen a lot of different cities use a lot of different softwares. Generally, the ones that use Great Plains are much cleaner. It's just better set up to actually do the processes that cities need to have done. I will tell you, I didn't get to talk about the single audit report. Can I talk about that real quick?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry. So on the single audit report, let me open that up real quick. So it's going to have the yellow book report, which again, we don't have any findings, so that's going to be another clean report. You have the uniform guidance opinion. Again, we don't have any findings, no compliance findings, no control deficiencies, significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, so nothing to report there. The major program that we audited this year was the ARPA funds, the 21027. Now, I'm also going to highlight this again. A lot of cities have had problems with the ARPA funds. They have not been in compliance. They've used it for things that they're not allowed to do. And I'm not going to just say cities. I've seen colleges, universities, probably counties. I don't get to look at those. But colleges, universities, state agencies, there's been so many problems with the ARPA funds, but not at the city of Midwest City. They got it right. So again, credit to Tia and his team, because honestly, if I had 10 more clients like Tia, my life would be much easier. So Thank you.
So you can wrap up your presentation
Yeah.
with Midwest City's number one. And with that,
They're
I'd
doing
entertain
very
a motion-
well.
I'd entertain a motion to
I make
approve
a
the audit.
motion that we accept the audit and approve the audit report for Midwest City for the year ending in June 2024.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Abstentions?
Thanks, Jake.
That's Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, Jake from State Farm. So, yeah, we were very fortunate to have the quality of staff we have and to have these clean audits. It hasn't always been this way, finding letters and material things, but just like ARPA, we worked really hard to make sure we got ARPA right. Very, very hard, and made sure we spent the money the way it's supposed to be spent and on a timely manner. So I'm proud of that. That took a lot of work, so.
Item number 9, Mr. Lane.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action approving a resolution amending Resolution 2008-08A by modifying the level of emergency reserves. The general fund shall be 20%, and the police, fire, welcome center, convention visitors bureau, and juvenile fund shall be 10% of its budgetary operating expenditures each fiscal year. So reminding you back to a couple years ago when we discussed in one of our strategic planning meetings that we felt like we needed to raise these reserves to a higher level, creates more protection for the city, gives us room in case we do hit bad financial times. We've been very blessed for the last few years. We do have very good fund balances, but we need to protect those fund balances. And so this is a way of protecting those. You want to say anything, Tia?
No, I didn't even tell Jake to say anything about that. You saw that you highlighted that in the audit, so it just happened to be that it was perfect timing. So I have nothing else to say other than what city manager said.
Any questions?
And it answers Sarah's first question.
Proactive.
And I don't want to fear-monger people. I think historically, we just did a study here that our city was very durable during tough economic times because we have diversity in our businesses, but I think it's good to play it sound and safe. So, thank you.
And this is also good when we have those unforeseen circumstances like an $8 million ice storm or a F5 tornado, this just gives us a little cushion. Any other questions?
Well, just one obvious observation. When we move to increase reserves from 10 to 20%, that decreases the amount of revenue we have in the short term to spend on current projects, correct? To some
Technically
extent.
it does, but we have such large fund balances, we won't operate anywhere near these reserves.
So we don't have any, I guess what I'm asking or thinking about is, we don't have any major projects or ongoing projects that are going to be adversely affected by making this change.
The only one that would be this juvenile fund, which is kind of an interesting fund, that it comes from tickets for juvenile offenses, and we've had to supplement that fund at times. We've had a part-time. We just recently filled that position with a full-time person. We moved them over to the police department, a part of the CAO program, and it is working. We have a really good, it sounds like, according to the chief, we have a very good juvenile officer that's being very proactive. They're starting to get into the schools and work with the SROs. That fund will have to shore up over time, but I'm not worried about it. It's a very small amount of money.
So will we be able to use funds that are available in the police department for that, or is that still separate? And
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. It'll either come from the general fund or from the police department.
But in other words, I think, Councilman, this is not necessarily a budget cuts.
No, there's no, but we're just reserving money. We're reserving balances. We're just reserving our savings account, like a personal savings account. Instead of reserving 10% of it, we're reserving 20 that we can't spend into. Now, we can spend into it under certain, as the ordinance reads, certain hard financial times, but you would know about it if we were in that position.
And plus too, this is a measure that's recommended by our insurance carrier, OMAG, and very few cities are able to maintain this. So, any other questions or discussion? Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the resolution, amending resolution 2008-08A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 10, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action of approving an ordinance amending the Midwest City Municipal Code to de-annex a portion of Midwest City Riverside Mobile Home Park and transfer ownership of water and sewer lines within the mobile home park to the owner of said park. Mr. Meisch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This issue and this matter has been up before the City Council on more than one occasion, and what you have here before you now is an ordinance to de-annex Riverside Mobile Home Park, which was a culmination of discussions that we had with Riverside Mobile Home Park. It was at their request, at least the owner of the majority of Riverside Mobile Home Park, that the de-annexation occur. When we had those discussions, we both agreed that we would use Rick Rice, say hi Rick, to assist us with this. We're going down this avenue for one reason. We actually asked Riverside Mobile Home Park to initiate the de-annexation process. If we follow through on that, it's about a 10-step process that will take months to do. Or, as Rick discovered and relayed to us, if the City Council takes this one step, we're done. So Rick, we talked to Tim and agreed that we would try this one step and put Rick in charge of drafting all the documents that you see before you in the ordinance to effectuate that de-annexation. If this is passed, the city will continue to provide water service, sewer service, and sanitation. It, though, will come at an increased cost as opposed to current fees will be 1.5. So it'll be a 50% increase in those. Police coverage would defer out to the county, and if de-annexation occurs, this becomes part of the county. The county is adjacent to it, so it's not a standalone for the county. They have other properties that abut this piece of property as well. And police coverage then would be provided by the sheriff's office. Fire would be still provided by the city under a mutual aid agreement we have with the county to provide that service. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
I can't visualize this at all. So we're going to annex them away from us,
Correct.
still providing some services. We're going to send them a big water bill.
What's going to happen is twofold. One is there are already water lines and sewer lines within there that we provide. We are actually transferring ownership of that from a certain point where the pumps and the lift stations are into the system to the mobile home park owners, and then they will service those. But we will continue to, yes, provide water and sewer through those current lines that we have there at this time.
Now, how big of a, how many families are there at that park, or is this something that?
So there's almost 200 lots in there, but 162 families. And as of today, they all want this to happen. They are all on board. This is a kind of a unique situation where the city wanted to get rid of that responsibility, but they also wanted the city off their back and have a little bit more freedom. The county's rules on some of their code issues are not as stringent as Midwest City, and that's what started this. So what'll happen is the water bill will stop at the main, and the park will then send their bill to their residents to divvy that up amongst the 162 that are currently occupied. But the bill is 150% of what they're paying now, and they're fine with that. So because the choice is that or have the park shut down.
So what is the negative for Midwest City doing this? I mean, what?
We lose some square footage. We lose some square footage. The
little
negative
bit of
is our
population.
map is a little smaller, you know, and when you want to say we're 25 square miles, well, we're now 24.9 square miles. I mean, it's truly, that's the negative. The other thing is we were spending an enormous amount of time on code enforcement, going out there, writing them up. There was court battles. There was civil litigation that started. It's very interesting because both parties contacted me at the same time and said, help. And I said, well, I can't do that, but everybody can waive a conflict of interest and I can help facilitate the solution. And this is the solution that both sides want. And the city is more than happy to hand over the responsibility. I do have the manager here, and she has told me that all of the residents have actually been waiting for this. She's implemented new procedures and code within the park of the residents, and have been telling them for the last year this is coming, and they've been waiting. So they're all happy for this to happen. So, but our footprint gets a little bit smaller.
And I would assume that they're included in our census numbers?
They won't be.
Yes, they are
They
now.
were.
They are now, but they won't be
Yeah.
in 2030.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right,
Right.
2030.
And so if sewer lines, water lines fail, then they're responsible for repairing
Yes,
those
they are.
to
We're only-
DEQ standards, city standards?
Yeah, it's, well, no, not city
DEQ
standards.
standards.
It's no different, it's no different right now than the water and sewer that comes to your house. After the meter, you have a house line. If that house line fails, you gotta fix it, okay? Well, after the city's main going into the park, if something fails, they've gotta fix it, and they know that. The sewers, the city will maintain after the lift stations. I believe that's, at the lift stations to the city is where the city maintains. But within that, if they have a sewer line collapse, it's no different than if you have your house line collapse. Gotta call a plumber.
So would would Midwest City be, I know, annex them, de-annex them, what is the proper term?
De-annex.
De-annex them. How can it ever come back on us that we're responsible for anything other than providing emergency police?
Well,
They have
let me
to-
talk about the police and the fire. The 911 calls today go to Midwest City's call center. 911 calls, when this becomes effective, which would be in 30 days, will then go to the county sheriff. And that's no different. Do we have a map that we can?
Well, Forest Park, there's certain Forest Park that's covered
But
by
if
that
we-
too, aren't they?
Do we have a map that we can pull up of the city on here?
I have a map. Oh, no, that's okay.
This property is contiguous to county land already, that the county already services. Wow. I asked. There you go. This would be it. There you go. So,
So that big white empty dot that's always been there is gonna get just a little bit bigger.
just a little bit bigger. Yes, that big white square is now gonna become a white trapezoid. That's,
And the other piece of it is, this particular property falls within Ward 5 and actually is a flood zone, right? So
and that's what, the impetus that started all of this in a very rough way. Okay, good. Now, do you have the ability to see? You do, look at that. All right. Do you see that unincorporated square there? That's all county land. Now, the land we're talking about, you're gonna get up there and point.
We're talking about this area
Right. So go back and show the white unincorporated square.
Which is right up here.
Right, okay, hold right there. So that whole square that says unincorporated, that's all county land now. That's
Okay.
not Midwest City, but it's surrounded by Midwest City. And the small trapezoid underneath
This right
is what we are talking. That will become county land after tonight if you pass this. And it will join those other homes and tracts that are north of there.
Most of those are empty because.
Most of them are now empty.
Yeah, because that's a floodplain in there and they've been
Actually, they've
mitigating.
been knocked
And-
down.
And what had happened was the Army Corps of Engineers actually changed the flood map. And Midwest City has codes that pertain to trailer parks. how high they have to be built off the ground. A lot of the properties that have been there for a long time are grandfathered. However, new ones coming in have to be put at Midwest City site, but the county doesn't have those same rules. So Midwest City's code enforcement has been in that park a number of times, writing all sorts of tickets. The other thing that the park does is the first 5 streets are occupied lots, but south of that, they're unoccupied lots, but they can take more trailers. And those are all private streets, they're not public streets. And so the owner would bring in trailers, fix them up, and then put them on a lot to be occupied. But Midwest City has an ordinance that prohibits the manufacture or repair of trailers in Midwest City. It created this big vicious circle between the owner and the city that just was never ending. And the only resolution was to truly close the park, which is not a solution for all the residents.
And Councilwoman, keep in mind, some of the folks who live there actually own their property. So some folks will move in, rent to own, or some will buy the lot and have their own trailers that they put on. And a few months ago, it almost felt like they may have to shut down.
They were gonna, yes.
And that would displace all those families that resided there. And so,
if I can point out, all of the homes in this area are individual lots owned by individual owners. All of the lots in this area are owned by the trailer park owner.
Okay.
And this is where they've been filling into. The problem is, every single person that lives in there owns their lot. The people that are here are mere tenants. And so it's a universal thing. You're gonna displace 200 families if the park gets shut down. This was a solution that everybody could live with.
Thank you.
But yes, it does decrease the acreage of Midwest City a little bit.
Does anyone have any other questions from Mr. Rice or Mr. Mage? Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you all.
Item number 11, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving a resolution sunsetting certain boards, committees, and commissions of the city of Midwest City and set how future boards, committees, and commissions shall be created. Mr. Mush.
Thank you. As you may recall, back in our January 14th meeting, you all looked at this fine chart here that had the multicolors on it. What was decided during that meeting, we had a lot of discussion about the various boards, committees, and commissions of the city. And what you directed staff to do was the first crack you wanted to take and look at was to sunset those that were in yellow, that were highlighted yellow on that chart. And that's what this does. It goes through, and we did two things. From that discussion, there was talk and a request that the sidewalk committee be taken out of the yellow and be looked at individually. That was done. Secondly, there was the Tinker Restoration project that was on that list, which is not a committee of the city council or the city, but is a tinker that Paul Streets is assigned to, and it's just one of his job duties, so we removed that. So in the original chart there were 12, we are now requesting that 10 be sunsetted. Those 10 are the Capital Improvement Committee, the Capital Projects Council Committee, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, the Economic Development Advisory Committee, the original Mile Reinvestment Committee, the Residential Parking Restrictions Board, the Retiree Health Insurance Council Committee, Sign Review Committee, Subdivision Regulations and Zoning Ordinance Update Task Force Committee, and the Trails Advisory Committee. Out of all of those committees, none of those committees, boards, or commissions have met in any way, shape, or form in the last 2 years. These are groups that are, they basically were designed for a specific issue. That specific issue has run, but nobody has taken action to sunset them. That's what this resolution, if adopted, would do, would sunset those. In looking through our city ordinances, only one of them is mentioned in a city ordinance. So I have placed on here number 12, which would change one word, taking out the word committee and making it a program, thereby it can still, the idea and the concept can still go on, but it'll be just a city staff project program that the city council will have oversight over. That is what this action, this resolution would do right now. Half of it. If you look at the agenda item, then it lists out also moving forward. How are we going to move forward? Well, we're going to look at each one of those boards and commissions that were not highlighted and reestablish those. And there'll be a creation either through ordinance or through a resolution to put information so each committee knows how they're to function. And what we'll do is we'll have a creation section in creating that board, committee, or commission. They'll have a purpose statement, a mission statement, membership, membership appointment requirements, membership terms, membership reappointment, election of officers, membership removal, and then as requested by by the city council, have a sunset provision in there, and then any other provision that is warranted. Looking forward, the other half that the city council requested in January was to combine the 3 trade boards that we have into one, which was recommended, those that are highlighted in green. That is being worked through our process, and the request was that that be brought back before the city council in March, and we are on process to do that. Secondly, if you remember, the ADA Transition Committee was here when we originally talked about this. They are actually on schedule, and I have drafted theirs up to be reestablished and be on the agenda in March as well. So the plan is to take on those 2 in March, and then we will continue to progress forward with the other boards, committees, and commissions. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So basically, instead of us sending you recommendations per board, right, you're gonna
Right.
bring each of those boards in a reasonable fashion
Right.
before us. And
Right.
so at that point, if we want to amend, we can do that.
At that time, yes, you can either choose to sunset, you
Yeah.
can choose to amend, you can choose to change, and we will talk about 1 or 2 as we go through city council meeting by city council meeting.
That's all of them.
Yes.
You are incredible. I know that sounds crazy, but it's almost like streamlining the process of
It's what we're trying to do.
re-envisioning some of them.
Well,
Thank you.
this is a huge step for our community.
Yes.
It's long been needed. It clears up a lot of ambiguity in our ordinances and how we establish committees. Governance by committees kind of slow things down. Some are needed, some are not. So I want to thank the staff for going through all this and the arduous process of weeding all this out and finding which ones were actually needed to stay and the ones that needed to go. So again, thank you guys
Yes.
for going through this, and the chair would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I want to
Oh,
give us a little bit of credit as well. This is a huge step for the council because
You
we've had a
know
lot
this
of
is my-
debates on this.
My thing. Thank you. Thank you and the staff for
I-
all
I-
that you do on this.
I'm going to jump in here just a second. Couldn't have been done without each and every staff member who is here, and even many that are not here. They were very prompt, and I asked questions, and they educated me to be able to put the information together. They gave me all the information. They added to the information that we had, and staff did a yeoman's job at just jumping in and doing this.
Well,
And they
of
should be
course, I knew
commended.
they did the work, Don.
Yeah, they did all the work. I just typed stuff. That's all I
Well,
did.
But I really do appreciate it, and it's so important to me that we have this real clear so that more people can get involved in their government. So I just cannot say thank you enough on that. Now you want a motion?
So I will allow you to make the motion. Or Sarah, do you want to make the motion?
That's a big one.
I'll let you do what you do, right?
Okay.
Sarah, you make the motion.
Don't do that, Sarah. Read it.
Oh, I'm making this motion.
Okay.
Please read it.
I want to be fair all around.
Fair. Okay. I make a motion that we approve the resolutions to sunset certain boards as mentioned by our lecturer's attorney, and set how we're going to do future boards. That's my motion.
And I will second that motion by Councilwoman.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Good job.
Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
You've already covered 7. Do we just need to vote on?
We just, yeah, number
Or
12.
12, I'm sorry. 12.
Okay, Sarah, you can do that.
You just need to adopt the, now that you've sunset all 10 of those, we do need a one-word change in chapter 38. And so if you approve that, we will take care of that and move forward.
Are you making a motion?
No, he can't.
I can't.
Item number 12, I do need a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We now move into new business public discussion. What? Oh, I thought I was getting yelled at.
I said well done.
What?
I said well done.
Oh. It scares me. We now move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before council? Hearing or seeing none, we do have an executive session, and I would request a motion to recess from city council agenda and move on to the other agendas.
Motion to recess from the city council.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We are now here recess, and I call to order the Midwest City Municipal Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any trustee requests discussion item or a unanimous consent cannot be made, then the item will be removed and heard in regular order. Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Had a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Discussion items number 1, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving a resolution amending Resolution MA 2008-08A by modifying the level of emergency reserves. The municipal authority shall be 10% of its budgetary operating expenditures each fiscal year.
Second.
I had a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Steve, you got something you want to say?
You're good, dude. Motion carries. Item number 2, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed 219,000 Midwest City Municipal Authority Drinking Water SRF Promissory Note Series 2025, approving a loan agreement, promissory note, security agreement, and sales tax agreement, authorizing such other documents and agreements as may be necessary or required, authorizing the sale of the note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board and containing other provisions relating thereto. Mr. Streets.
Honorable Mayor and Council, City Manager, it's another wonderful opportunity for us. There's a section of the city called Starview. Actually, ironically, we're serviced by the same folks that service some of the unincorporated county. They had a failed water well. I don't know if you remember this, many months ago, actually 2 years ago. We went to the DWSRF and secured 100% loan forgiveness funding from them. It just took us a long time to get here. It was a little bit complex and challenging. And again, we owe a debt of gratitude to Carrie Evenson and our partners, Garver Engineering, who helped us work through this process. We are now at a point where we're ready to go ahead and get this thing finalized so that we can start executing work. You'll see a subsequent agenda item for $169,000, which will allow Brewer to go in and actually do the work associated with this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Again, this is more of that free money that we don't have to pay back, so it's
Correct.
kind of a no-brainer.
And as Pat might point out, I came to you with an option with that is really zero out of cost for us, but I'm still wearing a bow tie.
I understand.
It's, yeah.
Any questions? Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. And once again, the bow tie worked.
Thank you,
Item
Mayor.
number 3, Mr. Lyon.
Item 3 is identical as on the city council regarding the On-Road 2 program of receiving $1.5 million, $1,585,048.80 to replace eligible diesel vehicles.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
I had a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 4, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action awarding the bid to and approving a contract with Brewer Construction Oklahoma LLC in the amount of $169,896 to provide all necessary services to complete the Starview Service Line Connections project. As Mr. Streets just mentioned.
As I mentioned, yep. You're good? Any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a motion.
I make a second.
I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Next item, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving a contract with Routeware, Inc. and affiliates in an amount not to exceed $117,084 for the implementation of Smart City Fleet Management Software for solid waste and recycling services, and authorizing the general manager to execute the contract. Mr. Streets and his bow tie next.
Yes. Obviously, this is an item that's a little bit near and dear to my heart. Tim will remember about 10 years ago when sanitation got moved under Mr. Lyon, one of our things we tried to do was put AVL on all of our trash trucks, essentially be able to locate them, get live locations for our trash trucks and municipal solid waste vehicles, so that not only our staff could understand where they were, but allow real-time communication between not only the folks in the admin office, but the folks that are actually driving the equipment. To that end, many, many years later, we did a couple of pilots. Once again, Carrie was able to kind of ride herd on the pilot we did with Routeware. They came in and equipped our vehicles, a certain number of vehicles, so that we could actually test out what this looked like, and that actually came to the council for review and approval. We like what we see. For those that have ever fielded complaints from customers about, say, big trash not being picked up, or trash carts that are overloaded, or trash carts that aren't out, it's very challenging for our staff, our admin folks, to be able to answer those questions. This will give us the live feedback from the driver that we haven't had previously. There's a cost, obviously, and we demoed a couple of options. The interesting thing is that after demoing both of those options, Routeware bought the other one. So we're actually going to get some of the best features from one of the options that we tested that are being essentially added to the suite of services offered by Routeware. It is something that's on a buy board, so provided you all agree, we'll allow Mr. Lyon to enter into that agreement, and essentially on behalf of the city, I think this is a great decision and actually gives our solid waste services an opportunity to move into the 21st century.
This will help us from an efficiency perspective.
Body cameras on our dump or trash
It
trucks.
is like body cameras on our dumpster, but it also maps the routing and how we route things, and or if you're from Oklahoma, how you route things. But it'll help us from an efficiency perspective, because it's a big city. It's a lot of moving parts to what they do.
But I also think it's gonna be a good deal for our staff too, because a lot of times, I'm sure everybody on the council's got these, oh, these people, they missed me, or my stuff was out at the street and I just drove by it. Well, lady, it wasn't out, and I can show you a picture of it. It wasn't there, so that's, your staff gets beat up a lot about that.
We do.
I know they do.
Yep, appreciate that.
I think right now, at least on what I call Big Trash Day, the city staff, somebody comes by with their own camera and takes pictures ahead of time to avoid just that very thing. Will this take the place of the need to do that?
So as Pat pointed out, this actually will have a camera facing the curbside, so it'll actually collect data as it goes down the street. We opted not to put cab-facing cameras. In other words, we're not filming the drivers, we're filming the street as they drive by. This will give us the opportunity, rather than having to document those piles, this will capture a lot of that information. As it stops and actually picks up, for instance, there'll be a trail of breadcrumbs. It'll take a picture of that area or location, and that information will be available for a certain amount of time, and then obviously it'll fall off as we don't. And normally for us, this will give our folks in the admin side be able to answer questions live if somebody comes by and asks the question. We do make mistakes. I mean, the reality is our drivers do the best they can, but it's the only city service that actually touches every single customer once a week, every week of the year. And that's an important, that doesn't happen in a lot of them. Nobody else is driving every single street in the city, hitting that many houses. So this gives us an opportunity to do a better job on our end, and at the same time provides a little transparency to the customer.
And there is gonna be an ongoing cost in addition to this?
There will be, yes. There's a setup initially for us to get the equipment and get it installed. There'll actually be some purchasing out of a capital account where we actually put money since 2015 just for this purpose, and then we'll be paying them a contract price for them to maintain the software and to do upgrades and services, et cetera.
Thank you.
Paul, I know this might be far-fetched, but some of the trash cans that maybe need servicing, I know, I mean, they drive by, let's say the lid's missing completely off of one. Could they replace it? Do you normally call those in? What do y'all normally do on this?
So there are times when drivers, if they see a can that's damaged, it's a great point, Rick. If there is a can or a cart that's damaged, we do try to make sure we call that in to get a replacement cart out. It's a little hard right now. We're having to use cell phones, and we would prefer that drivers don't use their phones, obviously, because it's personal equipment. Even if they are stopped, it's still not something we would like to do. This gives them essentially a piece of equipment in to be able to capture a photo, send it in, so that, for instance, work orders or service requests, we'll be able to we'll document those and be able to go out and get those things replaced.
Any other questions? Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Streets.
Appreciate it.
Now move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we hereby adjourn. I call to order the Midwest City Memorial Hospital Authority. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any trustee requests to discuss an item, or if unanimous consent is not received, then the item has been removed and heard in regular order. Number three needs to be pulled. I would entertain a motion to approve with the exception of item number 3, and it will be pulled.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of number 3.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Are we to hear item number 3?
Yeah.
Okay, item number 3, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes to the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives. So this agenda item, we don't need to make any changes, but tonight we have our investment company here for the hospital authority, Keith Reynolds, who's the vice president and senior consultant from Siegel Marco Advisors, who has replaced Jim Garrels, who used to do our investments for many, many years. If you all remember, Jim retired, and he went out and helped us find a replacement. That's a nationwide large investment company with active equity managers that continuously work on this program. And we kind of tried each other out for about a year, and we feel very strongly about maintaining and keeping our relationship with Keith and Siegel Marco. And so with that succession plan, we asked for the rest of the council to get to meet Keith and visit a little bit about his company and give us a little bit of update on the trust.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you all. My name is Keith Reynolds. I work with Siegel Marco Advisors. I'm the new Jim Garrels, even though I had the opportunity to work with Jim for about maybe a year, actually. Got to work under him, really try to understand this pool of assets, how it's been managed historically and how it's grown to what it is today. And it's grown significantly, as you've seen, from, you know, a $40 million contribution to $140 some odd million today. So it's been fantastic. Siegel Marco, I think what makes us, I think maybe the next step for you as you've grown in asset size is just the capabilities that we have as a firm. You don't just have Keith Reynolds, you have a firm that we have research that's based in New York, Chicago, Boston, that is doing ongoing research on your investment managers. We've got about $600 billion in assets under management, which, as far as like the managers that we do deep research on, we have about, so we have about 50,000 crazy strategies in our database. About 10,000 we cover very closely, and about 1,000 of them we recommend. So those kind of recommended managers are the ones that get in your portfolio.
You said 600 billion?
600, yes. So we've got about 600 billion in client assets. Just to give you a little bit of information about me, which is probably what you're more interested in. So I work with a combination of public funds. So I have some public funds that I work with, as well as other endowments and foundations, and really ranging in size. So you're at $140 million. I have a smaller foundation that's $25 million. I also assist co-consultant on a state treasury treasury assets that's around $10 billion. So big range, but that's what I like working with Siegel Marco, is just to get to work with different size accounts. I think that what makes us unique, again, is just the modeling, the capabilities, the fact that if we're talking about asset allocation, we have a risk management team that I can turn to and bring in to have discussions about that. We've utilized them in reviewing the asset allocation for this portfolio. If it comes to a manager that's underperforming, we have researchers that do, you know, they're going to ongoing due diligence with these managers as well, meet with them in person on an annual basis at a minimum, but also, you know, ongoing conversations throughout the year as well. So it's really hard. I think the industry has changed a lot even over the past 20 years. It's hard to just have one consultant that can cover all of these vast number of areas. You really need a firm that has those capabilities and specialists where all they do, such as manager research, they just meet with investment managers, and they want to have to be able to decipher between, you know, what's the best managers out there. Likewise with asset allocation, just having folks that that's all they do is look at asset allocation, spending. The modeling is quite impressive, and yeah, just really excited to be here, really excited to be working with you. We've had a great couple of years. The past 2 years I've been working with you. Gosh, we've been in the upper teens with performance, but what I wanted to say about that is that we're really getting to a point now where, you know, I think earlier in the meeting talking about risk, and, you know, that's a big thing that we're looking at on this portfolio of assets as well, is how can we want to maintain a certain level of return that continues to grow this pool of assets, but we also want to have some protection on the downside. So if we have a 2008, if we have, you know, 2020 earlier during the COVID crisis, certainly we want to be as protected as we can. So we're continuing to do a lot of work in looking at reducing risk, and that can be through other asset allocations, and that can also be done with just the structure of the underlying managers as well. So it's an ongoing process, but you're in great hands. The committee has been fantastic to work with, and you know, again, you're getting results. You've had really strong performance. Jim was fantastic. So taking you from $40 million to where you're at today, he absolutely had you positioned for growth, and you certainly got that. And so he had you positioned well. I hope for me, I can maintain that, you know, moving forward, gaining in assets, but also adding that layer of downside protection, which I think is going to be beneficial looking ahead.
And I'd like to point out Keith's performance this year. He we made over $20 million with a 16.9% rate of return. So it's pretty good.
Can you do that
Pretty
with my
good.
retirement fund?
Pretty good.
Can
I think it's important, and I've seen this chart a bunch over the last 9 years. In 1996, we started out with $40 million to start in case we had to take the hospital over. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lyons, we have spent over $114 million in real estate, correct?
That's correct.
We started out with 40, we spent over 114 million, and today we're at 143 million.
In cash.
So we've done
Yeah.
something right.
So, just as a matter of education here, where did the initial 40 million come from?
It came from when we leased the hospital, the council leased the hospital to HMA instead of operating it themselves. They prepaid the rent of $40 million.
Gotcha. And then, is this money in the stock market, or is it in a CD?
So you're right. So some of this is in the stock market. We also have some of these assets in the bond markets as well as cash. And we'll continue to look to, diversifying assets as it may become attractive. But yes, we definitely have a good portion of these in the stock market. And I think that's a really good point to bring up. So right now our target to stocks is about 65%. And so what we want to do is that, there is risk associated with that. So we have the fixed income bucket that is helping to offset that as well as cash. But we're looking to try to dial back some of that stock market risk so that, in the future, if we do have a downturn, if the markets are down 20%, we don't want to be down 20%. Look, when the market's down 20%, we're probably going to be down, but it'd be much nicer if we're down 12% because you have a bigger, not as deep of a hole to dig out of when the markets do come back up. So we're trying to smooth out the return pattern looking ahead, and I think we're definitely on the right path to do that.
Mr. Lyons, is it an accurate statement that we see this every council agenda, correct?
That's correct. Every council meeting, we usually take no action. On occasion, we do take action because we have an investment policy. If we go outside that investment policy, this council has to approve that.
Another thing I wanted to mention is due to the size of Siegel Marco and just working with your investment managers, you've got a couple of index funds that you had. These are low-cost index funds that we were actually able to move you into a lower-cost share class, essentially. So just last year, we saved about $25,000 in fees just from those two pools that we were able to get you with our backing into lower cost share classes as well. So we're looking at that. We want to have return. We want to get the lowest fees that we can. Again, just have a smoother ride. Diversification is very important. Harry Markowitz is the father of modern portfolio theory, and he said, the only free lunch in investing is diversification. So we definitely stand by that. We want to see diversification, and that's just going to have a smoother ride. Also want to have really good investment managers that are adding value. So we want to have passive management. So passive is like indexing, low cost. If it's the S&P 500, just matching the S&P 500 with as low of fees as possible. We want to marry that with active managers in certain segments that can potentially add value over their index. And those managers tend to have a higher quality focus, which can add some downside protection as well. So they're looking for strong companies, good cash flows, good businesses that they may weight those a little bit differently than the index, and they've done a really good job. So that's where our research group at Siegel Marco, I think, can really benefit and add value, is with those active managers to be able to differentiate between, there's some that are good, some that aren't as good. So we need to be able to meet with them and understand how they invest and try to differentiate between which ones we think are going to be the best for our clients. And our research groups, again, they're located in New York, Chicago, Boston. We also track their performance as well. So it's not just me saying, hey, we have a great research group, they're fantastic, you'll love them, but we actually score them on how well the managers that they are reviewing have performed long term. So,
Do you watch Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah, exactly, that, yes, some
Is
of
there an
our,
advantage,
some,
is there
some
an
of our.
advantage for, like, the city of Midwest City
Yes.
to use your company and let you leverage our investments because you have billions of dollars?
Right.
Is there an advantage for us to be with you? Can you
Yeah.
guys have leverage to get us into a better deal someplace?
Yeah, so a couple ways this works. So I would say with your traditional investments, what you have with working with Siegel Marco is that we have other institutional investors with a lot of assets. I talked about $600 billion that's being put to work in the different markets. Those assets, from an investment manager standpoint, if we have, so some of these investment vehicles have minimums to get into those particular vehicles. And so while Midwest City may not have enough assets to get in a particular vehicle, we may have hundreds of millions of dollars in that strategy already with other clients that we have. So often we're able to negotiate with the investment managers to allow, say, Midwest City, hey, we want to get into that lower fee share class as well. And they're able to do that just because, as you mentioned, we have other clients that have other assets with those particular managers. Another area, and I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but as you look at alternative investments, especially in some of the share classes, I'm not saying we're going to look in deeply in alternatives or this and that, but strong managers in some of the, let's say, private equity or some of the private markets, they can be really hard to get access to. So with a company like ours that has the number of assets that are going into the alternative investments as well, we have access to a lot of those best managers, which gives you access if we choose that. And so alternatives, I mean, that can be anything from private equity. It can be, various forms of real assets. Obviously, you don't need real estate, but, there's a whole infrastructure, the whole gamut of different private market investments as well. So just having that size, again, just gives you better access, lower fees, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure we're getting the most out of our investments, and so fees are definitely a big component.
Any further questions? Well, first off, I want to thank you for coming and talking to us. Several of us knew Jim, and we're quite fond of him because he's very straightforward and to the point. And we appreciate your straightforward and coming to us and talking to us. And does anyone else have any questions? I entertain a motion to approve.
No action.
No action taken. So that's easy. Thank you again for
Pleasure
being here.
to meet you.
Will you commit to cheering for OSU?
What's that?
Will you commit to cheering for OSU?
Oh, well, so yeah, I didn't even tell where I'm from. So I'm from outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Grew up all my life in Atlanta.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. So you never know. I have a sophomore in high school, so you never know. Maybe I can get her to check out Oklahoma State.
Once
or
again,
OU. So yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, we do have discussion items we need to take care of. Discussion item number 1, Mr. Lyons.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving the funding recommendations of the Midwest City Hospital Authority Board of Grantors for the FY 24-25 Community Improvement Grant Program in an amount not to exceed the budgeted amount of $565,871.
Any questions? Chair to entertain a motion to approve.
This is the grants, right? I'm sorry, I was zoned out for a minute thinking about all the money he just discussed. I see Pastor Taylor back there, who is a recipient of one of the awards. If you would just come up for a minute. I'm really excited because this park, this field is in Ward 5. It was literally not being utilized for a really long period of time.
Right.
It's not my understanding that you purchased the land, right? You're just renting the land from the city, right?
We're leasing it.
Yes, and will you tell us a little bit more about your program that you run there?
So essentially what we did is our church started a ministry that is a youth football ministry.
Yep.
And so we're reaching out to families all over Midwest City and all over this area and allowing them to come in, very low fees comparative to a lot of these other programs, and allowing them to become, what we're really trying to do is make them into good men is what we're trying to do. That's sort of the focus of our ministry. And we've had a lot of feedback last couple of years from many of our families saying that they've already seen immediate results in that way.
Yeah.
And so just trying to minister to these young guys. And, you know, my heart is for Ward 5 specifically, because in my opinion, oftentimes it's looked at as sort of the armpit of the city, and maybe in some ways it has been and is. And I'd like to see us sort of turn that around in many ways. And the family is how that gets accomplished. And so we've got men from various backgrounds that are pouring into these guys and to helping them to learn how to raise a family. And it's been wildly successful, in my opinion, so far.
Well, and I remember when you were looking at the property, there was the issue with the light was existing, and
Yes.
I just want to thank you for being a blessing, because you found a way, right, to revitalize that portion of the city and give it life and give access to so many kids and families to be able to enjoy that. And I really think it increases public safety and just accommodations. And so thank you so much for looking at every avenue possible. And thank you, the city manager and everyone else that made this deal possible in totality, including the use of the land. So.
I agree, and I want to publicly give credit to God, because he's the one that has allowed all of this. And again, our church is thrilled.
Yeah.
We're making an investment as a church every year, and we're thrilled about what's going on.
Awesome.
You need to give her your name and address too, so she can put it in the record.
Okay. Oh, Tim Taylor, my address is 10113 Oak Park Drive.
Is there, thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Is there any other recipients that are in the audience for any of these grants?
I don't see any.
Okay. I do have a question, and I think this was part of the conversation last year, and Councilwoman Eads isn't here. So the fire department is getting $6,337 from mannequins. Is that not money that could come out of the fire department's budget?
So as we focused on these grants, and you can see that we did not spend $565,000. We spent $167,000. And when I say we, I'm just there to help guide the process. It's the board of grantors that rank all these. You get a chance to see all the rankings. You all know how this all works. And the focus is on community grants. It's a community improvement grant program. And so there were a lot of things on there that kind of slid past the community grants that maybe were more private sector oriented. And so that's one of the reasons they did not spend all the money. And so anything the city does, so these mannequins are used to do community outreach, to go out and do training in the community. Much like the AEDs last year, the fire department that you distribute around the city, these mannequins are used to train people in the city to do CPR.
So not something that their regular budget
No,
should cover?
it is
Okay.
not something that would be normally.
And so I want to thank you for that, because I think the concern she and I had last year was that city departments were applying for portions of this money and getting it, and our hope was that most, that the money would go towards nonprofits and community organizations and projects versus us.
And
giving
that's
it back to
something
the
that we probably need to follow up with the chamber at some point and make it more policy driven about the community grants, maybe clarifying them just a little bit. But I think that overall this board of grantors is very conscientious, and I told them, you don't have to spend all the money just because it's there.
Yeah.
And so this money will be rolled into next year's money. So,
Okay, move to approve.
If we're gonna give credit, Marcus needs credit too, because he stepped up for a community theater.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
we're
not
excited
here.
about
What is
that.
that about?
Yeah, I
Give
don't
us
know.
more details.
We're excited about the community theater. We're excited about a lot of these. These are some really good grants that we have.
So I understand I have a motion? Did you
Yes,
make a
move to
motion?
approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Item number 2, Mr. Lyon.
You have to pass
Yes,
the gavel.
I'm extremely aware of that. I'll let him read that, and I'll step down off the horseshoe. Thank you very much, Mr. H.
Discussion, consideration, possible action approving the funding recommendations Midwest City Hospital Authority Board of Grantors for FY 24-25 Community Improvement Grant Program in amount not to exceed the budget amount of $565,871. This one is specifically dealing with Leah's Hope. The mayor's wife is on the board of directors.
And I'll pass the gavel to Mr. Byrne and step down off the horseshoe.
And City Attorney, I think it's important that you explain that even though the mayor's wife is on the board, she's not paid. So that's where that doesn't come in where there being a conflict.
Well,
Well,
that's part of it. The other part of it is, please understand that those conflict of interest issues arise as your position in the city council. You're currently sitting in a position as a trustee of the hospital,
Okay.
Memorial Hospital Authority, and the AG has said it only applies in your position as a city council member.
Okay.
So since it's a board of trustees and he's just the chair of the trust, those conflict of interest issues that we've looked at in the past don't apply.
Okay.
Don, just out of curiosity, part of this budget approval was for the fire department. As a city council person, I represent the fire department. Why isn't that a conflict?
I did not know you represented the fire department.
Well, I represent the city, and the fire department's part of the city. And I'm just wondering, how deep do you have to go, or how far removed do you have to be before it becomes a conflict?
Well, the issue on the conflict, I'll tell you what, the issue on the conflict is, the question becomes, for it to be a conflict, there has to be certain requirements that are met as you as a city council member versus you sitting in various other roles. The other part of it is you have to derive some sort of benefit from that that's above and beyond what the general public receives. So just because you're sitting in your city council role, you might receive a benefit, as long as the general populace receives that benefit as well as fire protection, then that's not a conflict. Versus if you were sitting and you approved a contract that a spouse was a part of, and that spouse received a bonus from their employer for that, then you received an indirect benefit, and that can be viewed as a conflict. So you've got to receive a benefit above and beyond what the general populace receives. So just because
As usual with every lawyer in the world,
Right.
that's
So
clear
just-
as mud.
Right.
Thank you very much for that.
So I was going to say, you receive sanitation services, but so does everybody else. So voting on a contract for sanitation services doesn't cause a conflict.
is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, passes. Okay, see how quick we did that, Matt? You can stay back there.
Might as well just keep on talking, Don.
Okay, where are we? Item number 3, Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration of possible action approving an assignment of commercial land contract from Sooner Investment agreeing to purchase plus or minus 1.75 acres, tract located at 8912 through 8920 Southeast 29th Street for $2,600,000 plus closing costs, and authorizing the chairman to execute all documents necessary for the closing. This is a discussion item we've had in executive session about economic development, and Mr. Coleman here is if you have any questions.
If we decide to vote on this, if you guys will let me make the motion, because there's requirements that I've been asked to put in the motion that we can hold Sooner accountable for.
Please do.
Any questions of Mr. Coleman? Go ahead with your motion, Mr. Byrne.
Just so you know, Sarah, it's It's on the staff report, so.
Okay.
And I make a motion to accept and approve the assignment of commercial land contract from Sooner Investment, agreeing to purchase a 1.75 acre tract located from 8,912 to 8,920 Southeast 29th Street, as described for $2,600,000 plus closing cost, only after Sewer Investment provides proof of expenses as outlined in Exhibit C of the assignment, in addition to all reports, maps, test results, and any other pertinent information that came as a result of those expenses, to the satisfaction of the general manager, and to authorize the chairman to execute all documents necessary for the closing.
We do have a properly formed motion. Do I have a second?
I second that. Are we allowed to talk about this at this point?
Yeah.
What it is?
Oh, sure.
Well, not
Ask any before we
Not
close
what it
this
is
out.
yet.
We don't
Keith.
know what it.
I don't, well, I make a motion to approve it. And if we can talk about it, great. If we can't,
Well, you're going to second his motion, right?
I second his.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. We now move into new business public discussion. Does anyone have anything to bring before the authority? Hearing or seeing none, we are hereby adjourned, and I request a motion to reconvene on the council agenda.
I make a motion that we reconvene on the council
Second.
issues.
I have a motion and a second to reconvene. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. We now call to order the, again, Midwest City Council Authority. We do have a executive session attached to this agenda. Mr. Lyon.
Discussion, consideration, possible action of one, entering into an executive session is allowed under Title 25, Section 307B4, discuss confidential communications between a public body and its attorney concerning a pending investigation, claim, or action of the body with the advice of its attorney. Determining disclosure will seriously impair the ability of the public body to process the claim or conduct a pending investigation, litigation, or proceeding in the public interest regarding review of litigated settlements concerning that letter, concerning the letter that was received, and two, authorizing the city manager to take action as appropriate based on discussion.
Motion to enter into executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in executive session. Thank you for being here, and have a good night.